Hello friends, and welcome back to Maple Bay Potager. My name is Faye, and today is a very exciting day. We are going to be planting the 2026 tomatoes. And I have a whole list here. I don't know how many varieties we're starting, it's a lot. So today I'm going to be starting everything except for my micro dwarf tomatoes. I'm going to be starting those in a week or two. When I start like my squash and things like that is when I like to start my micro dwarfs. And they're not going to produce as early, but it just saves space. And then I have a bunch of cherry tomatoes throughout the season before the big plants are ready usually. So I have my seeds here, and we are going to talk about all of the different varieties that I'm planting and why. And we're also going to be talking about the varieties that were runner-ups but didn't make the cut this year and why I decided not to plant these ones and planted the ones, or am going to plant the ones that are on my list. So most of these are tomato seeds that I have saved myself, and any that are store-bought are from Moonglow Gardens. Ash at Moonglow Gardens has an amazing selection of tomato seeds. So if you are a tomato freak like I am, where I'm assuming you might be if you're gonna watch a video like this, or I'm just gonna nerd out about tomato varieties, you probably wanna go and check out what she has in her seed store. I have a couple varieties that I got in seed swaps, but the only ones that aren't just, actually I think all of these were gifts. So that's really, really nice. I have excellent friends that gift me tomato seeds. How did I get so fortunate? So this year my goal with my tomatoes is to put up at least a year's worth of tomato products for my household, as well as I usually like to give some salsa away as gifts around Christmas time. I'm always giving canning as presents. If you get a present from me, it's probably going to be canning or baking, or maybe fresh veggies if they're in season. So I grow a lot of tomatoes. There's only two of us, me and my partner, in my household. I have had people be surprised and tell me, oh my God, I thought you had like 6 kids. And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, why do you grow so many tomatoes? And we pretty much don't buy tomatoes at the store ever. I grow pretty much all the tomatoes that we eat, except we do buy ketchup at the store still. I haven't been able to make a ketchup that we're happy with as a substitute, so we still buy our ketchup at the store. But pretty much otherwise, like all of our canned tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, barbecue sauce, salsa, I make all kinds of stuff with tomatoes. So we eat a lot of tomatoes and I grow a lot of tomatoes. And if you've ever put up tomatoes, you know they're mostly water. So a lot of the varieties that I'm growing are very meaty tomatoes that don't have a lot of seeds and a lot of gel. And a couple of varieties really don't have very much water at all. And that's because I am planning on putting up a lot of tomatoes. Even my cherry tomatoes, I really like to freeze cherry tomatoes whole and use them in pasta sauces and things like that in the winter time. And I also have a cherry tomato salsa that I really, really like. So I also put up a lot of my cherry tomatoes. They're not just for fresh eating. And this year I traded some services with a friend of mine for a really nice dehydrator that is sitting on the table beside you here. And so this season, I'm hoping to be able to dehydrate some cherry tomatoes as well. So we're gonna be growing a lot of cherry tomatoes as well as big tomatoes. So let's get into it. I have my pile of seeds here, and let's start with the only determinate variety that I'm growing this year outside of the micro dwarves, and that is one of my favorite tomatoes I've ever grown, and it is called Sleeping Lady, and it is described, I believe, on the page as a mahogany or something, but to me, like, it's a purple tomato. So similar to like a Cherokee purple, that kind of a flavor profile, I would say. Maybe a little bit more tomatoey and a little less smoky, but it is a very, very prolific plant. So not last year, but the year before, I had 4 plants and got just boxes and boxes of like good size, meaty tomatoes, and they're delicious fresh, and they didn't have a lot of seeds and gel in them, so they were really nice for processing as well. I got a lot out of them. And so I'm going to be starting 8 seeds of these, and that is in hopes of getting 6 plants out into the garden. So if everything goes well, I should have 2 extra starts. All of my extra starts I usually sell, or anything that I have left over by the time my garden club puts on their annual perennial exchange. You can also bring starts to that. And so any that I don't plant or sell, I will take to the exchange and exchange them for perennials and other things that they have there. So any extras won't be going to waste. So I think how I'm actually going to do this, I was going to try and plant as we talk, but I have somebody coming in about an hour and a bit. So we're just going to talk varieties, and I will get these planted after we talk. And I think that I'll have a better chance of not messing up labeling and things like that if we do it that way too. All right, so we are going to get into the indeterminates, which, if you don't know, that last tomato that we were talking about, I mentioned that it is a determinate. If you don't know what a determinate is, that is a bush tomato. So they get to a determined height. So in my experience, these Sleeping Lady beefsteaks, they're also sometimes called dwarf tomatoes. They get under 3 feet, probably, for me, but very, very productive plants. All of the varieties we're going to be talking about other than those today are indeterminate varieties, meaning that they are vining, and so they do not grow to a determined height. If your season went on forever and that plant never got sick, that plant would continue to grow and produce fruit for you. So our first variety we are going to talk about is one that I grew for the first time last year and really, really enjoyed, and it is called White Queen. It's a large beefsteak tomato. This first category is all going to be slicers or beefsteaks, so stuff that goes really nice on a sandwich, but a lot of these varieties, like I say, are really meaty, and so they're nice for canning as well. This is a white tomato. I don't think before last year that I had ever grown a white tomato, and the flavor was described as fruity, and I would agree with that. I would say that white tomatoes are probably, in my opinion and my experience, the fruitiest tomatoes. They're quite acidic, kind of like a pineapple acidity. So they're also quite sweet. They're so good, and I really liked, like, I will put a picture, but I was making tomatoes with these, I was making tomato sandwiches with these White Queen tomatoes and the Sleeping Lady tomatoes. So the white with the like darker purple and like the contrast of those flavors. Oh, they were so, so good. So I'm really hoping to recreate that this year. So I'm going to be planting 2 of those, like starting 2 of those, and planting 1 of those plants out in the garden this year. We'll see. I might sneak another one in. I have a lot of varieties, and I'm trying to keep it reasonable because I still have a whole bunch of tomatoes from the last 2 years, but that's not going to stop me from growing tomatoes. It's just going to mean that I'm going to make things other than just plain diced tomatoes this year, which is exciting. But all that to say, I am trying to keep it pared down. So most of these varieties, I am only growing one plant. My favorite plants, I'm going to be growing 2 plants. So the next up on the list is one of my favorites, and that is a Brad Gates tomato called Berkeley's Pink Tie-Dye. I think it's become pretty popular. I got these seeds in a swap years ago now, and ever since it has had a place in my garden. They are one of the earliest varieties to mature for me. The Sleeping Lady, I think in the last 2 years that I've been growing that one, is the only tomato that ripens faster than the Berkeley's Pink Tie-Dye. They are a pink tomato, but they have these really awesome stripes and streaks, and they're stripy on the outside and on the inside of the tomato, so they're pink and green all throughout. They're a beautiful tomato, and they have amazing flavor, which in my experience, any of the Brad Gates tomatoes that I have grown do have amazing flavor. So I'm going to be growing 2 of those. I will be starting 4 to make sure that I get my 2. The next up on the list is a tomato that I've been growing for years and really, really love, and it is called Ananas Noir, or black pineapple. That's French for black pineapple. This is again, a large beef steak that's really, really meaty and doesn't have a lot of seeds or gel, and produces some of the largest tomatoes I think I've ever grown in my northern garden. And they are a really streaky tomato as well. They are streaked with yellow, red, and green. So they're a really, really pretty tomato and have really good flavor as well. I'm going to be planting only one of those, so I will be starting 2. I'm going to be starting at least 1 extra of everything just to make sure that I do have what I need. The next tomato is called Phelan's First Snow, and that is a really cool tomato. It is a stabilized Cherokee purple that has variegated foliage. So with the white splashes on the leaves, and it has a tomato like a Cherokee purple, so a purple tomato with really good flavor. I grew this for the first time last year, and I didn't have very good production on them, but I grew them in my raised beds, and I had black plastic down in the pathways around the raised beds, and I think that it was too hot for my tomatoes because they dropped blossoms all season. And I don't know, everybody that I talked to said that last year was cold, and that was not how the tomatoes felt about it. They dropped blossoms all season because it was too hot, I think because of that black plastic and being in the raised beds. So I'm going to be trying the Phelan's First Frost again this year because even my really productive varieties struggled last year. So I'm not going to judge this variety based on last year's performance. The next variety is one that is new to me, and it is called Moonglow Jewel. It's a hybrid that came out of the Kaleidoscope Jewel, I believe, which is a cherry tomato. Let me just see, I have it in my pile here. Yes, the Kaleidoscopic Jewel, which is a cherry tomato, and I'll put a picture of that in too. That's on my didn't make it to grow this year list. And the reason I'm not growing it is because I am growing the Moonglow Jewel instead, which is not a cherry tomato, but kind of a squat slicer. And it's described as pink with green stripes, and it gets the kind of antho dark purple shoulders. So a really, really beautiful looking tomato. And I think that she said it was a really early variety that was pretty productive, I believe, but don't quote me on that. I looked up a lot of tomatoes and read a lot about tomatoes, and I didn't make any notes outside of the colors because I wanted a nice rainbow basket. So out of those beefsteaks and slicers, we have a white variety, a pink and green variety, a yellow, red, and green variety, another purple variety, along with our determinate purple, and another pink and green variety that has the anthocyanin on the shoulders, and then a yellow, orange, and red streaked variety with the antho on the shoulders. So quite a mix of the colors. And if you notice, I'm not going to be growing a large red slicer. I do have a variety of red cherry tomatoes that I will be growing, but I think outside of that I have, oh, and my San Marzanos. So that's what's up next on the list. We're getting into the paste and oxheart varieties. So first up is San Marzano, which is a classic Italian paste tomato. This specific variety that I have seeds for, they are, this sounds weird, but they are the driest tomato I have ever grown. There is a big pocket of air between the flesh of the tomato and the inner core where there's a little bit of seeds and gel. So they are a really, really awesome tomato for processing because they don't have a lot of water in them. So I'm going to be growing 2 of those plants. They have been quite productive for me as well. And again, they are a red tomato. The next up is Fuego Rosa, which is a pink and yellow striped paste tomato. I've never grown this one. I was really fortunate. Ash from Moonglow Gardens hosted a seed swap last year, and I was in a group and I got to swap seeds with Karen Olivier, who is the Northern Gardener on Instagram and Facebook, and she is a really cool tomato breeder in Canada. And so I have always followed and just coveted all of the things that she does. She grows so many cool varieties. And I was so lucky to get to swap seeds with her. So a bunch of those tomatoes made the list this year. But anyways, I will be starting them. And so these are from seeds that she sent me. I'm not sure if this is her variety. Let me find the seed pack here. So on the seed pack, it says grown and gifted in memory of Fred Hempel. So I'm not sure if this is his variety or what the story is, but that feels like it should be included in this. So we will be growing Fred's Fuego Rosa, and that is, like I say, a pink and yellow striped paste tomato, similar, hopefully, I'm hoping, to the San Marzano. And I'll be trying one of those plants this year. Next up is an oxheart tomato that was developed by another, I think she's a tomato breeder, Carmel Bella Farms. I'm dyslexic. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. I think maybe I've only actually read that. So hopefully that's how you say it. But I will be linking all of these people that I'm talking about in the description box. But she breeds such beautiful varieties. And so I got these seeds last year, I think, and grew them for the first time last year. And they are a pink heart-shaped, like an ox heart tomato with the purple anthocyanin shoulders. And again, they weren't super productive last year, but I think that's how I grew my tomatoes last year, is to fault for that, not the varieties. So I'm going to be trying that one again this year. They were really delicious tomatoes and absolutely stunning. And the plants were really pretty too. I think that they were the plant that was kind of, they were like wispy, little, I don't know, like refined, pretty vines, or really, really pretty plants. Next up is a Karen Olivier variety called Midnight Sun, and it's an ox heart that is yellow with red streaking. And all of these, except for the San Marzano, I'm going to be aiming to have one plant in the garden, so I'll be starting an extra. So 2 starts total. After Midnight Sun, the next variety that I'm going to be growing is a variety called Taiga, and it's another Karen Olivier tomato. It is a ox heart as well, and this one is a green when ripe tomato, but it has red and yellow streaking. So I'm really excited to see that one. If you've never grown green when ripe tomatoes, I would really encourage you to try one variety in your garden at some point, because I really, really enjoy them. I don't know if they're everybody's thing, and I haven't tried every single kind of green variety, but one of my all-time favorite tomatoes, which is, we're not planting today because it's a micro dwarf, but it's a green when ripe variety called Fat Frog, and it's a micro dwarf, and the skin when the tomatoes are ripe get this like neat modeling on them, and they look kind of like frog skin, but they're so sweet and so good. I have another variety on here in the cherries that is a green when ripe variety as well. Actually, I have 2 other ones, but only one of them I've grown, and it is another just delicious tomato. So I'm really excited to try the Taiga and try out another green tomato and hopefully find a bigger green tomato, because I haven't found a large green when ripe variety. I don't know if I've ever tried another large one. I think the next largest is the Bayou Moon, which we're going to get to. So next up is our cherries, and this year I am growing a couple of saladette sized tomatoes, which is not something I normally gravitate towards. I usually don't prefer that size of tomato, but like I say, I do a lot of processing and things with them, so I thought, what the heck, these looked like really cool varieties, and the Bayou Moon is actually one of them. We'll get to that. So the first up, I grew this for the first time last year. I got these seeds in a swap with my friend Bree, and they're called Rido's Sweet Cherry, and they are a open pollinated, stabilized version of, I believe it's Sweet 1 Millions or Sweet 100s, one of those 2 varieties. That they're a very popular red cherry tomato that produce really long trusses. So that's where they get their name from, is I think that there's a story of that there was a truss with 100 tomatoes on it. And they're smaller red cherries, but they have just incredible flavor. Like, I had heard people talk about them before, but I had never grown them. I tend to gravitate to the weird stuff, so things that most people are growing, I kind of usually am not excited about, is kind of my personality type. So I kind of poo-pooed the Sweet 100s and also the Sun Golds, which we're going to get to. But I had heard people talk, like, they're on everybody's favorite cherry tomato list. And I found out last year why. Like, those have the best flavor ever. So I'm going to be planting 2 of those, and they're a smaller red cherry. And next up is a variety called Tim's Taste of Paradise. And I believe that this is a Brad Gates tomato as well, but it's a stabilized version of Sun Gold, which is a small golden cherry tomato that is also on everybody's favorite list that I had never grown before. So I am going to be growing 2 of those plants, at least 2 of those plants. I might try and squish some in somewhere else, because last year, every time I was out in the garden, I stripped these 2 varieties, just eating them fresh in the garden. They were so good, especially with that black plastic down around the boxes and the plants just getting all that heat. To go out and eat those little fresh cherry tomatoes in the heat of the day, my mouth is watering thinking about it. So the next variety, I don't know if last year was my first time to grow these or if this was my second year. I think last year was my first time to grow these. And these, I believe, are another Brad Gates tomato, and they are called blue cream berries. And so they are actually a white cherry tomato with the anthocyanin on the shoulders. So they're a really pretty plant. My only complaint is that they were really, really thin skinned. So if anything in the garden was gonna crack after a rain, it was the blue cream berries, and the Tim's Taste of Paradise had really thin skin as well. So I would recommend, if you grow either of those varieties and you know that a rain is coming, go and pick any that look even kind of right, because they will split. But again, the blue cream berries being a white tomato, they were so good, and they were just something a little bit different in like the cherry tomato mix. So I like to do like a big bowl of mixed cherry tomatoes and eat that as a snack, and it's nice to have all of those different flavor profiles. And I feel like with those white tomatoes, they have a very unique flavor profile. The next variety is one that I call unicorn peach. That's not actually what it's called. It is, I think I have figured out, it's actually a black vernissage cherry tomato. And so they are a kind of larger pink cherry tomato with green streaking. To me, they're like the cherry version of the Berkeley pink tie-dye tomato, and they're so good. The reason why I call them unicorn peach is I got seeds for these in a swap, and I believe the variety is actually called Wapiscon peach. And I'm not sure if I got mislabeled seeds or if I mislabeled my plants. It was written in cursive on the seed pack that I received, and I am dyslexic, and so I read unicorn peach. And so neither of those things were correct. It was not a unicorn peach, and it was also not a Wapiscon peach. It is a black vernissage tomato, but forever to me, they will be unicorn peach tomatoes. But just know, if you hear me talking about unicorn peach tomatoes and you can't find seeds for them, they're actually black vernissage tomatoes. And I love them. So this is the first year I won't be growing two of that variety. I'll only be growing one. They have been ousted from like my top favorite cherry tomato variety by the Tim's Taste of Paradise and the Rido Sweet Cherry. So those are two that I highly recommend. And I really like that those two, to go backwards in time here, I really like that the Tim's Taste and the Rido Sweet are open pollinated, and so I can save the seeds off of those and get the same thing next year. Anyways, the next up is a variety from Moonglow Gardens, and it is the first saladette tomato that I decided to grow this year, and it is called Cosmic Burst. They start out yellow with the red streaks, and they have those purple shoulders. They sound similar to the Lucid Gem plants, but just in a cherry size or a saladette size. The next up is a variety called Green Zebra, and they're also a saladette size tomato. I have never grown either of these, like I haven't grown the Cosmic Burst or the Green Zebra before, but they are a green when ripe tomato, as you might have guessed from the name Green Zebra. And so I guess they ripen to like quite a chartreuse, like yellowy green, and keep these dark green stripes on them, and they're supposed to have a really, really good flavor. Like I'm pretty sure in the write-up it said that they had won some blind taste tests at some point in time, so I'm excited to try those. Like I say, I have become a fan of green tomatoes, and so now I just want to try all the green tomatoes. And so the last variety is not one that I was planning on growing, but this is a variety that I have grown for multiple years. It is called Bayou Moon, and I got these seeds at Moonglow Gardens. They are a yellow-green tomato. Like they're green when ripe, but they're quite a yellowy green. They're a little easier to tell when they're ripe than some green varieties because they do get a little bit more of that kind of golden hue. And I just love the name Bayou Moon because I think that's so fitting, that like green glow that they get when they're ripe. They're a really pretty tomato. quite a large saladette size. They're kind of almost a plum tomato. I wasn't sure if I should put them in the paste or the cherries, but I decided to put them on the cherries because some of them are a bit more that saladette size. They kind of vary a bit, but they have a really, really nice flavor and are very, very productive plants. And my partner specifically requested to grow these, which he doesn't usually eat fresh tomatoes, and this is the tomato that he requested that he wanted to have on sandwiches this summer, specifically this variety. So I think that speaks pretty highly of it, and I'll absolutely throw in an extra plant for him, and along with all the others, right? More the merrier. And so, oh, I lied to you. We have a last determinate variety, and this is a determinate cherry that I have grown for a number of years. It's a hanging basket variety called Rosy Falls. And so it is a stabilized, open pollinated variation of a hanging basket tomato called Cherry Falls, but this one is a pink variety. And so I like to put these in pots all over my garden and all over my deck, and they are really, really prolific. And I'll show a picture. They must be kind of a rare variety. I got the seeds initially from Moonglow Gardens. I'm not sure if she has seeds for them anymore. I did find it a little tricky to find pictures of them online. I was able to find a couple of different sites, but the pictures looked really red. And so I'm gonna throw up a couple pictures of my baskets from years previous and just show you, like, they really are kind of a champagne-y pink color. They're a very beautiful tomato. They have really good flavor and they're really, really productive. I do find that those plants can sometimes struggle with sickness when my other varieties don't seem to, but that could be due to stress and neglect because I do grow them in pots, not in the ground like the rest of the tomatoes. And sometimes I'm not the best about looking after pots, if I'm just being honest with you, so it could completely be me and not the variety. But that is something that I've noticed, is that they do get a little bit sicker than my other plants, and I'm not sure if that's variety specific or not. And so that is all of the varieties of the big tomatoes that I will be growing. We're gonna go over the list now of the plants that did not make the cut, but were my close runner-ups that I was very tempted to grow. And actually, when I was organizing my seeds and bringing my tomato seeds out to do this, I think that I had initially narrowed it down to less, and then 3 more varieties ended up in my I am gonna grow pile out of the maybe pile, so we'll see what happens today. But the first variety up is another Karen Olivier variety, and it is called Carmel Purple Multiflora. And so it's a multiflora variety. I believe that this was a saladette size, and that is why I decided ultimately not to grow this one, because that's just not my preference of tomato size. This is a blue bumblebee tomato, and I believe that this is a Brad Gates tomato as well. I could be wrong on that, but it is a yellow tomato with the antho shoulders. And this is just quite similar to being like the blue creamberries, even though they're white. I would say the next closest thing to a white tomato is a yellow tomato, and they have the antho on them, as well as the Cosmic Burst starts out yellow. So I just felt, and then with the Tim's Taste of Paradise, I felt like I had enough yellow tomatoes in my cherry basket that even though I really, really like the blue bumblebee tomatoes, I'm not gonna be growing them this year. They are a very productive cherry tomato though. Next up is a variety called Black Strawberry. And this, I'm still really tempted to grow this. This is an absolutely beautiful tomato. Ash from Moonglow Gardens has talked about this multiple times online. Apparently it's very, very delicious, very beautiful. I think it was pretty productive. I'm not talking myself into more tomatoes. So that was a very, very close runner up. But being a saladette size, strike against it. and it's quite similar to some of the others that I'm growing again. So maybe I'll try that one next year, but a couple different tomatoes made the cut ahead of that one this year. Next up is black cherry tomato, which is kind of a purpley cherry tomato that is very, very popular. I still don't think I've ever actually grown these that I can remember, but again, they're just pretty similar to things that I'm growing. So they didn't make the cut this year, maybe next year. Now this is a Bella tomato, and this is very similar to the Fuego Rosa. So this one just didn't make the cut. I decided to go with the Karen Olivier one that I had gotten. And so the next up is a tomato called Fairy Tale Magic, and it is kind of a bullet shaped or a plum shaped, like an oblong tomato, but it is a saladette tomato. So that is ultimately why I decided not to grow it, but it is a yellow tomato with red streaking. Very pretty. I still might grow that. I feel like that's been on my runner-up list the last 2 years, so maybe next year will be its year. The next one is called Kaleidoscopic Jewel. So we talked about that one a little bit. This is the mama plant, or the mama variety of the Moonglow Jewel. So this is the cherry variety of that, and it is again a saladette size. And so instead of this one, I'm going to be growing the Moonglow Jewel, which is a beefsteak size. And last up is one of my favorites, but I won't be growing it this year because I just have ones that are quite similar, and this is the Indigo Rose. And as you can see, I got these from West Coast Seeds. These are a pink tomato, as you might have guessed by the name. They are open pollinated, and they have the really, really dark antho shoulders. They're really pretty, really productive. I personally don't find that they have the best flavor, is why I decided not to grow these this year. I just have other tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, that I prefer the flavor of, and so they made the cut and these didn't. But they are one that I still really like because they are so pretty. And so those are all of the big tomatoes that I will be growing and was almost going to be growing this year. We are 5 weeks, I think today, from our last expected average frost date, which is May 20th, where I live. I generally don't plant my tomatoes out until about a week after that, and I find that they grow so fast in the soil blocks anyways that I am perfectly comfortable with starting these in the 5-week window, and I think I should have plants that are plenty big to plant out by the time outside is ready to be planted. I will show you a little clip from this morning. We woke up to quite a bit of snow, and my yard was full of robins who were not very happy about it. But it's already melting. I can see blue sky behind you. We have very warm days on the forecast in the next week. So spring is coming, and soon enough it will be time to plant tomatoes. But I have learned over the last couple years, I do not need to start things, especially tomatoes, quite as early with starting them in the soil blocks, because they just grow way too fast and the plants get way too big. So feel a little stressed that it's 5 weeks because that doesn't sound like enough time, but I know from experience that with the soil blocks, it is. So, talk myself down. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today and listening to me yap about tomato varieties. I would love to hear about any fun varieties that you're planning on growing this year that you're excited about. And if you have grown any of the varieties that I've mentioned and you really, really liked them or you really, really didn't, I would love to hear about that too. So thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, friends.